Black people had to prove their right to vote.
And to God, I sat next to a black woman.
Our country should be more fearful of white men.
Boom! Right!
What the hell happened?
He would just go all in on saving America.
Proud of everyone who's protesting peacefully.
As the Islamists take over, that's going to work out well for the Lesbos. How you doing, people? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is January 22nd, 2026. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. Share, subscribe, tap that notification bell, and we have a RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A for the second half of today's program. So if you want to join us, you can go to RubinReport.locals.com. You can download our iOS app. I think we're on the Google Android store. Do people still have that phone? That's a thing. And you can submit a question live, and maybe I'll answer it. Maybe you could try to insult me in a very creative way, and maybe it would get through our very cracked screening process over here, and I might say something insane. Anything is possible, but before we do that, obviously a lot more coming out of this World Economic Forum, Davos lunacy. We'll do a little bit of The View and some general catch up on what's going on in Minnesota. So let's just dive right in. Sunny Hostin, who I often refer to as the most racist woman on all of television. Here she is explaining that there is no data to prove that the people that ICE are kicking out are rapists and criminals. Take a look.
No, I thought what was so distasteful and disgusting, quite frankly, was the fact that he was holding out pictures generally of black people and of brown people and calling them predators and calling them rapists and calling them murderers. You know, to the world, the president of the United States, there is no data that says that those people are rapists and criminals. In fact, if you look at whatever data that we have, 70% of the people that ICE has detained don't have criminal convictions. Don't have any criminal record.
Did we know about those individuals? I couldn't tell. I was watching it live.
You couldn't tell, but I'll tell you, if he defamed somebody, they better sue the president of the United States. So they better sue somebody.
All right, I will offer you some political analysis on this in just a second, but I think we are all thinking the same exact thing, which put up this image of Carol Burnett. I believe this is around 1981. This was a send-up that they did on the Carol Burnett show of Gone with the Wind, where she's basically using the drapes as shoulder pads. And now can we go back to Sunny for a second? What is going on there? Look, and I'm not, you know my feelings about shoulder pads and the 80s and the Golden Girls, B. Arthur, Rue McClanahan, et cetera, but lady, ease up on the shoulder pads. It's just ridiculous. Okay, that's number one. That's the most important piece of analysis. As for what she actually said, first off, can we double check this? She's saying that 70% of the people that ICE has taken out have no criminal records. Now, again, this is where they distort everything, because by being here illegally, you have done something illegal. Thus, that's really not true. But okay, I can see what she's doing. She's playing with words there. But as for these guys who she wants to sue Donald Trump, some of these people that Donald Trump has shown some pictures, like, think how stupid what she's saying is. Donald Trump just grabbed a bunch of photos of random black and brown people and started saying horrible things about them. No, that's actually not the case. Allow me to do this pretty quickly. These are images from the Department of Homeland Security. There's Sahal Osman Shindane. He's a criminal sexual conduct, 4th degree of a victim 13 to 15 years old. There's Men Vang, who did assault, aggravated assault, non-family with a weapon, aggravated assault with a weapon, threat, and possibly terroristic state offenses. There's Rene Hernandez. He did a sex assault. There's Jamie Tirado Hernandez, another assault and a homicide. There's Odon Lotharath, which is a good name for somebody in Lord of the Rings. That was aggravated assault with a gun. There's Mong Chang, who I think was in, what was that? He was in Flash Gordon. Wasn't the bad guy in Flash Gordon? Wasn't that Mong Chang? He did a little homicide, stolen property, stolen vehicle, assault, homicide, willful kill, non-family weapon. There's Phuc Trong Nungin, who is carrying a prohibited weapon, possession of stolen vehicle, sex assault, possession of weapon, and rape. Oh, we've got more. Francisco Jorge Salgado, he was selling amphetamine, domestic violence, dangerous drugs, possession of cocaine, possession of weapons, probation violation, assault. Anything else? What was the bad guy's name in Flash Gordon?
The bad guy's name was Ming the Merciless.
Ming the Merciless. Was he in there? Can we get me a picture of Ming the Merciless for a little later in the show? Anyway, the point is, she's lying. The 70% thing is just a lie. That's just playing with words because they are illegal and they've got to go. That's number one. And number two, Trump didn't randomly, oh, look, and here's Chris Rock and Richard Pryor and Dave Chappelle. Like, no, come on, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. But why do they do it? They do it because they know they can get away with the lies because there's an entire mainstream media machine that launders their lies and gins up a bunch of otherwise sane people to be crazy, wackadoodle leftist lunatics. Ben Ferguson, a guy I like a lot. Has he been on the show? I've been on Piers with him a couple of times. We should have him on the show. He's a conservative author. He went over on Abby Phillip's show over on CNN and explained to them calmly that Obama did the exact same thing with ICE, but you hypocrites didn't say a word.
Look, ICE raids, controversial. Always have been, always will be.
Not really.
I think
when Obama was doing it, wasn't controversial.
Certainly,
you guys did right along.
Yes, I did.
Nope. I was working on something else. Throw it back because I barely was paying attention there. Let's throw that one back.
ICE raids, controversial. Always have been, always will be.
Not really.
I think
when Obama was doing it, wasn't controversial. You guys did right along.
Yes, I did.
Okay, I was working a little something for Ming the Merciless there, but okay. He's completely right that when Obama was doing this, nobody cared. The Democrats, because the Democrat Party was not a completely psychotic leftist radical party aimed at destroying America, they didn't care because, well, actually, we've got some evidence of it. Myra Flores, who former Texas Congresswoman, she put this up, and this illustrates it absolutely perfectly. Barack Obama's ICE chief received an award for 920,000 removals. Look at that image right there. Pretty proud, huh? Donald Trump's ICE chief was called a Nazi. Guess what, guys? You know who that is right there? Yeah, it's the same person. That's Tom Homan. In 2012, Obama deported 409,000 people. In 2025, Trump deported 290,000 people. The difference is mainstream media brainwashing. Look at that. I mean, that image right there should end all of this. There's Barack Obama giving Tom Homan an award. 920,000 people were kicked out of the country under leftist Democrat Barack Obama. Trump, to this point, with all of the crazy hysteria and everything else around it, it's a little bit over 700,000 people. Really think about that. Here's a bit more. Ben Ferguson, who is taking the role of Scott Jennings on the show, just laying out basic common sense.
When you go out for a walk or a jog, you carrying your birth certificate or your passport with you?
I carry my license, which is a form of documentation, because I'm an American citizen, so I have that.
Oh, hold on, but guess what?
This is not scary. When I flew, I had to get this out and go,
Ben,
here it is.
hang on just one second.
I'm an American citizen.
Hold on a second.
I still had to show it. I still had to show my license in the airport today to come on your show.
Hold on a second, Ben.
The worst of the worst. Show us the murderers and the rapists and the killers that you are arresting. Stop yourself. Then tell us you're not rounding up.
With a picture.
You can't stop yourself, man.
Hang on a second.
Zip it.
Please.
No, I'm sorry, you're not my mom. And second of all, you don't get to make it up. We've had the posters at the White House, the people that have been arrested. You said, show them to me.
All right, first off, I don't know who that hysterical lady is. It doesn't matter, just like the self-righteous. Again, lady, the rapists and murderers, they're coming for people like you and your daughter, if you have a daughter. And yet you're angry at Ben Ferguson for saying that most people have IDs, right? Like if ICE is in your town right now and you're going to Starbucks and you get caught up in something, right? Because they see that there's some illegals over there and you're in a car with them or next to them or whatever it might be, most people have an ID. And by the way, sometimes I walk out of my house without an ID. I walk the dog. I don't have my license on me. I don't have my wallet or anything. And if there was a massive ICE raid and I somehow got caught up in it, within moments they would be able to, oh, you live over there? Can you show us your ID? Like they're turning these decent human beings who are trying to apply the law in a lawful manner. They're trying to turn them into the Gestapo. It's just completely insane. And as we pointed out yesterday, both black people and women, and in some cases, black women can get IDs. I have full faith in the black and female community that they can get IDs just like white, Asians, Indians, et cetera, et cetera. Here is Ben Ferguson. Oh, want to back up for a second because I mentioned Ming the Merciless, who is the bad guy in Flash Gordon. Here's Ming. There's Ming the Merciless, and what you have on the right there, that is Mong Chang. So I don't know if there's a relation. Anything's possible. Here's a little bit more from Ben as Cornel West, who's just, well, he's sort of a cartoon character of what a leftist professor would be. They get into it a little bit.
True or false?
What's that, bro?
Did we allow millions of people unvetted into this country, many of them who are criminals, rapists, child molesters, child rapists, murderers, gangbangers, people killing people with fentanyl, bring in a little
How long
drugs.
is your question gonna go, bro?
Well, it's a long list.
I think you got enough.
List.
I think you got enough. I think you got
Okay,
enough.
well, when you let 10
Let me tell you
million,
what my
15
answer
million
is. Let me
into
tell you
this
what my
country.
answer is. Let me tell you what
You've
my
got a
answer
problem,
is.
and you
Let me
guys
tell you
did
what my
that.
answer is, though, brother Ben.
Abby.
What is it?
That there's no doubt that the Democrats did, in fact, were a colossal failure when it came to immigration. That's a fact.
Thank you.
But the other truth is this. The other
it's
truth
gonna
is
be
this, though. Let me finish now, brother. Don't just keep your flow coming out of University of Mississippi now.
All right, Dr. West. Everybody keep their hands to themselves at the table, please.
I love this.
Yeah, first off, the grabbing him, and you can see, like, I don't mean to be a whatever, but like Cornel West doesn't strike me as someone with great breath, and you can see that Ferguson's like, please don't breathe on me, whatever you do, but don't touch another panelist. Like, that's panel 101. You don't touch the people and grab the people. But however, it was nice. Cornel West, this guy is like far left, off the reservation, wackadoodle. It was nice of him to admit the Democrats have sucked on this. Now, it's not surprising in some sense because obviously the real leftist activists, the progressives, which is he is one of them, they want to destroy the Democrat Party in some sense more than they want to destroy the Republican Party. But what happens when these people lie about all of this? I mean, we've done this many times, but when they keep telling you that they're Nazis out there and they're grabbing people, and as Jon Stewart said, they're throwing up Wela on the linoleum floor in the kitchen, and there's never any video of this, and they're just grabbing random people, and it has nothing to do with anyone committing a crime. They create the conditions of craziness. So here is some video of protesters calling ICE Nazis, calling a black ICE officer a race traitor, et cetera, et cetera.
Be a race traitor?
See, again, y'all are throwing race into all of this. Nobody's throwing race into it.
You profile people for holding.
How deranged. You have white, I hate to say liberal, but you know what I mean. You have white leftist progressive women telling a black man that he's a race traitor. This is a guy who has a job, who is doing something for his country, and it has nothing to do with race. If they find an illegal who happens to be Hispanic from Guatemala, or black from Senegal, or white from wherever, they're going to get that person. This has nothing to do with race. This has to do with enforcing our laws. But I would also say, I mentioned it yesterday, we're sort of between an unstoppable force and an immovable object here. Because Trump can't stop this now. He cannot. His administration would be completely over. They are doing what they set out to do, which is completely constitutional, as we've covered before. If he is to say, okay, guys, it's getting a little messy, it's a bit much, and there's been a lot of protests, and they're calling our officers Nazis and race traitors. If he cuts and runs, he's cooked. I mean, it would show that the radicals on the street can defeat the president of the United States. Now, the radicals, they want more craziness, so they do everything possible to push these guys to get them into an awful situation, which is what unfolded 2 weeks ago with the shooting of that woman, Renee Good, who was about to hit one of the ICE officers with her car. But I would say they are going to have to discuss, maybe, again, we're trying to get Kristi Noem on the show, but they are going to have to discuss some new standard operating procedures with these people. If everywhere ICE shows up, there is suddenly a mob, and the mob constantly gets as close to their face as possible, and you can see in some instances they're kind of touching them and there's some pushing. Like, you're gonna have to figure out a new way to go about this, meaning, I don't know what it means exactly, but whether it's if you get within 5 feet of an ICE agent who's trying to get somewhere. If you impede his progress, you're going to be arrested. Like, I don't know exactly what the mechanism and the legal mechanism is, but otherwise, it's going to be the exact same thing that we saw during the BLM Summer of Love, with burning down the streets and taking over, just taking over main thoroughfares and everything else. It's going to be what we've seen with these Hamas rallies. You can just endlessly disrupt everything. And somehow you will do it in the name of being a good guy. It's absolutely crazy. And as the crazy gets ramped up, well, now we have a bit more from something that happened in Los Angeles. This is from The Hill. Federal law enforcement agents were involved in a shooting in an unincorporated area of Los Angeles early Wednesday while conducting an immigration enforcement operation, according to DHS. The agency identified the person as William Eduardo Moran Caballo and said he was involved in a human smuggling operation, had been arrested twice prior on domestic abuse-related charges, and had been ordered to remove from the country in 2019. In a dangerous attempt to evade arrest, this criminal illegal alien weaponized his vehicle and rammed law enforcement, the statement continued. Fearing for his life and safety, an agent fired defensive shots. The criminal illegal alien was not hit and attempted to flee on foot. He was successfully apprehended by law enforcement. The DHS said Caballo was not injured, but a U.S. Border Patrol agent was, without going into further detail. Might I offer you ladies of The View a little broadcasting advice? How about tomorrow on your show, or actually they're on right now, right? We go up against The View. I'm going to guess that they're not going to tell you about that story. I'm going to guess that they're not going to mention the guy who had been convicted of a bunch of crimes, who was supposed to leave the country 6 years ago, who used a vehicle as a weapon. And I'm going to guess they're also not going to mention the name of the ICE agent who is now injured because of it. But if they wanted to be fair, and as I always try to do on this show, give the devil his due, right? Take the opposite, what would be the best version of what the opposite side would say. Try to steel man their argument. You might want to cover that story, but of course you won't, because you guys love narrative. You don't like truth, you like narrative. Speaking of narrative, Jacob Frey, the Somali warlord who's in charge of Minnesota right now, or at least Minneapolis, here he is telling Chris Cuomo that he will not cooperate with ICE.
In Minneapolis, we will not cooperate with ICE or any federal agency around immigration enforcement work. We will not. And there's a good reason, by the way, that we won't. And it's not just the moral imperative here. It's also the fact that I want our police officers focusing on safety. I want our police officers arresting perpetrators of violent crime and preventing carjackings from taking place and doing that basic work of 911 response. You know what I don't want our police officers doing? Spending a single minute going after some father who just dropped his kids off at daycare, is about to go work a 12-hour shift, who happens to be from Ecuador.
Dude, if he's here illegally from Ecuador, he's got to go, and you are violating the Constitution of the United States, the Supremacy Clause, which I've read to you guys 10 times over the last couple of weeks. I'm not going to read it to you again. So it has nothing to do with your morals or anything else. Like, I don't care what you want. There are laws. There either are laws or aren't. It's sort of what Donald Trump said 10 years ago about a border. You either have a country or you don't. So you either have sovereign borders or you don't. You either have an ability to have legal citizens here or you don't. So the Democrat Party at this point, in that there is basically nobody except maybe Fetterman that is pushing against this stuff, in some sense, they're actually just an insurrectionist party at this point. They don't believe in our borders. They don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in our laws. And at some point, what do you do with that? I don't know what the answer to that is. Here's Tim Walz. He showed up like the neighbor on, what was the show with Tim Allen, on Home Improvement, who would always peek over the fence. He showed up at a protest peeking over a fence and tried to explain that we're as bad as China.
Chinese political prisoners. And we would ask them, when we speak up and call out your government, is it bad? And they said, well, in the short run, it's bad because they torture us. But if you don't speak up, they will torture us and forget about us. And the idea is right now is we have to be speaking up. We have to call it out. You are doing everything, and our neighbors are doing everything. And I can't stress enough on this. We're winning it because we're doing it with Minnesota grit, Minnesota humor, Minnesota decency.
He is the reverse Wilson. So Wilson was the neighbor. Do we have a picture? Wilson was the neighbor. You never fully saw his face. And Tim would basically in every episode get some advice from him. And he was this kind of thoughtful, interesting guy who was always working in the backyard. And Tim would always have all these crazy problems on the show. It was actually a pretty great show. And Tim Allen's fantastic. We should get him on the show. But he would give sage wisdom to Tim. Like Tim would have all these problems and he would just say something that was kind of basic and obvious. He was like the Scott Jennings next door, pretty much. And now you've got Tim Walz on the other side of the fence telling these people we're worse than China and you're so great for... Tim Walz, I'm going to guess that there is a fence at the governor's mansion. Why do you have that fence there? And Tim Walz, I'm going to guess when you walk out in public, you have armed guards with you. Why is that, Tim Walz? Tim Walz, I'm going to guess you have a Ring doorbell so you can see who, if they cracked through the fence and jumped past the guards, might be knocking at your door. So you are a hypocrite and a buffoon. Speaking of hypocrites and buffoons, let's jump back over to CNN where Scott Jennings had to smack down this kid. This is just so depressing. So there's this kid. He's just a child. His name is Cameron Kasky. He was actually one of the survivors of the Parkland shooting in Florida years ago. I had him on the show after that. And he became a radical leftist, subsequently anti-gun activist. He's like a pro-Hamas guy, like all of the bad stuff. And now he's running for Congress in New York, even though he's from Florida. He's never accomplished anything in his life, and he's a kid, so he's the perfect Democrat thing, right? So here he is trying to fact check Scott Jennings, and Scott Jennings put him in timeout.
So I am appreciative that the president is being transparent about this. I would love it if he was more transparent about the human sex trafficking network that he was a part of, but you can't win them all.
Cameron's grateful that the president is being transparent about the Nobel Peace Prize and his desires for Greenland. Scott, what do you think about that?
You gonna let that sit? Are we gonna claim here on CNN that the president is part of a global sex trafficking ring, or?
Well,
I mean,
we're going to talk about the Epstein file. Scott, I will do the fact checking as we go along here. Repeat what you said about the global sex trafficking ring.
That Donald Trump was provably very involved with it?
Okay, we'll get to that later. I mean, Donald Trump has never been charged with any crimes in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. But
let's be adults here.
We'll talk about Epstein
Let's be
files later.
serious.
Satisfied?
You guys all suck. You all suck. Whether you're the little kid there, he's just like a little brat, or whether you're the host. Yeah, we'll get to it later. No, you won't. Good for Scott Jennings. Are you going to let this stand? Oh, we'll get to it later. I was going to get to it later. I'll do the fact checking here. No, you won't. You people are all absolutely terrible. Anyway, subsequently, after Scott called the kid out on this, he's as far left nutty as you can imagine. He put this up because I think he might have realized he was going to be in a bit of trouble, although there's some snark to it. I would like to retract my comments from CNN last night and truly apologize. Donald Trump was obviously not involved with a giant international sex trafficking ring where women and children were systemically raped by elites. I said that by accident, and I didn't mean it. I mean, that's an apology, non-apology. And, Trump is not above litigation when it comes to these things, but it's just, why are you all awful? Like, think how ridiculous this is. The kid survives a shooting, thank God. Okay, fine. He then becomes a radical, the shooting's in Florida. He becomes a radical left, anti-gun, like all of the worst policy advocate for the last couple of years. I assume he's moved to New York in the last year or two, whatever it might be. And now he's running for Congress because he became a celebrity via surviving a shooting. Now, again, I'm glad he survived the shooting, but he has never done anything. Right? The kid he's a child. He has never accomplished anything. Why would he be running for Congress? And then why would CNN be like, yes, let's put this guy on as a valuable analyst? And poor Scott Jennings has to basically pat him on the head and be like, hush, child, and then explain to the host why he sucks too. Let's send Scott a box of chocolates or something. All right, let's talk about Tax Network USA and then we'll more on the other side. Do you owe back taxes or haven't even filed in years? Now's the time to resolve your tax issues. With the national debate around abolishing the income tax system, the IRS is pushing back by becoming more aggressive than ever. They're sending more collection notices, filing more tax liens, and collecting billions more than in recent years. If you owe or you haven't filed, it's not a matter of if the IRS will act, it's when. Right now, Tax Network USA is offering a completely free IRS research and discovery call to show you exactly where you stand. Their programs and strategies can save you thousands or even eliminate your debt entirely if you qualify. Don't make the mistake of trying to handle the IRS on your own. Representing yourself or calling them directly can waive your rights and cost you significantly more. The IRS is not on your side, but Tax Network USA is. Get the protection you need and start resolving your tax matters once and for all. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dave for your free discovery call. Don't let the IRS be the first to act. All right, so obviously the big story of the week, outside of just kind of the domestic craziness that, as I said, it's just not going anywhere for a while, is that the elites are all in Davos, Switzerland, at the WEF, World Economic Forum, and they're mostly plotting to kill and destroy everything good in the history of mankind. However, there's a man named Donald Trump, and he's there with some of his buddies, and they're trying to tell these people that, no, you're not going to do that on our watch. One of Donald Trump's buddies is Scott Bessent. And here he is with, let's say, a little snark as it comes to evil lizard person Gavin Newsom.
I think it's very, very ironic that Governor Newsom, who strikes me as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken, may be the only Californian who knows less about economics than Kamala Harris. He's here this week with his billionaire sugar daddy, Alex Soros, and the Davos is the perfect place for a man who, when everyone else was on lockdown, when he was having people arrested for going to church, he was having $1,000 a night meals at the French Laundry, and I'm sure the California people won't forget that. And I can tell my message to Governor Newsom is the Trump administration is coming to California. We are going to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. What have his economic policies brought? Outward migration from California, a gigantic budget deficit, the largest homeless population in America, and the poor folks in the Palisades who had their homes burned down. He is here hobnobbing with the global elite while his California citizens are still homeless. Shame on him. He is too smug, too self-absorbed, and too economically illiterate to know anything.
Yeah, that was pretty much all on point. But let's focus on the important part of it, which is that he's half Patrick Bateman, half Sparkle Beach Ken. Patrick Bateman, of course, was American Psycho, and if you have not seen that movie, it is Gavin Newsom. Even the sliminess of that picture, just perfect. And Sparkle, was it Sparkle Beach Ken? Sparkle Beach Ken there over there? Yeah, there he is. And yeah, that's pretty much Gavin Newsom. And by the way, those Barbie dolls, no genitals. And we've talked often about, because he's a lizard person, his testicles are on the inside, so it's even anatomically correct. Here's Gavin Newsom responding to Scott Bessent.
The Treasury Secretary described you as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken. The White House Communications Director.
That was the U.S. Secretary of Treasury.
I have a couple more, and then you can respond. The White House Communications Director called you Gavin Newsom, and an official White House account, a federal government account, described you with I'd say, very online sexual slur that people here probably don't want to hear at 8:30 in the morning. And you're, in some sense, responding in kind. And waving the knee pads around.
Fire with fire.
Do you think?
Yeah, fight fire with fire. Look, he shouldn't be there. That's the point. He's the governor of a state, and California is an important state with a massive economy and everything else. As Bessent pointed out, you really don't need to think that much about Newsom's policies. I think at the end of everything are people going to or fleeing the place that you govern? And we know that people are fleeing California still in droves. And now that there's this billionaire's tax, which ultimately will become a millionaire's tax and then a middle class tax, and they will start literally looking and going to try to make inventory out of all of the things that you own, even things that are inherited. You get grandma's ring or you get grandpa's stamp collection, and they will try to itemize that. More and more people will flee. Joseph, I think you wanted to make an interesting point though about Bessent.
But yeah, note that he just knew the exact model name for the Barbie doll.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Why did that? Maybe he had a great Barbie collection.
It's kind of he is.
Oh, a friend
Yeah.
of Dorothy, as we used to say.
Mhm.
Yes, I see your point. Alex Soros, who is George Soros' son, who George Soros has basically stepped away and is probably in some back-to-tank pool of goo right now, keeping him alive, sort of what they did with Palpatine in the new ones. Alex, his son, has taken over, and there is something so freaking creepy and inauthentic about this kid. Here he is trying to explain what democracy is. Can we try to count it? Let's all try to count it, and you can play along at home. How many does he do in this 45-second clip?
Democracy is messy. I mean, democracy is about contestation of ideas. It's about plurality. It's about people having different truths, actually. Now, fundamentally, how society lives together civically in those contestations is obviously quite tricky. But I think that if we play too much on this disinformation card, we're taking the responsibility away from ourselves to actually create a narrative that inspires people to vote and to believe, in democracy and democratic institutions. And on the institutional part, I think that we can talk about institutions as these abstract things.
Did you guys count? Let's see if we all got roughly the same. Remember, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I got 19 Did that roughly, how many do you get?
I got 17.
17. All right. So let's split the difference. There were 18 in a 40-second thing. We have an image of him, I think, from backstage, which, yep, there he is. That's Smeagol from Connor's favorite movie, The Lord of the Rings. There's something just, I don't even feel like analyzing that clip. He's just, what does this person have to do with any of our lives? Like his father, who is one of the most grotesque comic book characters in all of real history, someone who enjoyed literally working with the Nazis. I mean, Google this if you have not seen it, and there are videos about it on YouTube. As a young boy, worked with the Nazis to rat out Jewish families, and then becomes a billionaire, and has done all sorts, and he funds all of the awful anti-Western NGOs that are all over the place, and what do they call it, open society things, and all these terrible things. And now he's handed it to his son, who just comes, like, how can you be worth that much money and still be like a curmudgeon, grotesque little bleh? All right. Let's shift from that guy to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's just doing a bang-up job over there. He said he was going to get Greenland. We are going to get Greenland one way or another. He is going to do the Golden Dome. He is reasserting American dominance over the Western Hemisphere. We're working on the Board of Peace and a whole bunch more. But here is Trump talking about the Golden Dome and why Greenland was such a key part of all of this.
We will have everything we want. We're getting everything we want at no cost.
So the Golden Dome will be on Greenland?
A piece of it, yes, and it's a very important part because everything comes over Greenland. If the bad guys start shooting, it comes over Greenland. So we knock it down. It's pretty infallible. It's amazing. You know, Ronald Reagan had the idea a long time ago, but we didn't have any technology at that point. The concept was great, but there was no technology. Now we have unbelievable technology. I mean, virtually 100%.
So what are we talking about? An acquisition of Greenland? Are you going to pay for it?
We're talking about it. It's really being negotiated now, the details of it, but essentially it's total access. It's there's no end. There's no time limit.
Again, he just speaks clearly. He answers questions honestly. He talks about the negotiations. His hair, by the way, looks like the Golden Dome. Like, that's what they should design the Golden Dome to look like. It should just be a giant Donald Trump-esque wispy thing over. And of course he's right. And by the way, Ronald Reagan did try this. I mean, this was the Star Wars program, not the movie, but they actually had something called Star Wars. And the idea was that they were going to be shooting down intercontinental ballistic missiles and everything else. The technology wasn't quite there. But the Golden Dome will be a sort of an advance on the Iron Dome that America and Israel have been doing together for, it's almost 20 years now in designing, and it's going to be a much bigger version. And you might say, well, why would we need that? And what does this have to do with Greenland? But as he pointed out, if Russia, let's say, started shooting rockets at us into our hemisphere, they pretty much have to go over Greenland en route to Canada so that they could hit America, right? So the fact that we are going to now protect that area, it's exactly what Trump promised with the updated Monroe Doctrine. We are going to take care of our backyard, and we're going to make sure that the bad guys just don't keep encroaching on us. I thought this was quite good from the Babylon Bee. This is pretty good. Trump disguises himself as Muslim migrant so Europe will let him invade Greenland. There you go. And again, we are not going to invade. I mean, what did I say on the show like a week ago. We weren't going to invade Greenland. There wasn't going to be a soldier there. Nobody's going to be shot or anything else. We're going to cut some deals. Some of the people of Greenland will get some money. We will actually invest in it. The Golden Dome will appear there. It's going to be good for everybody. We're not angry at the people of Denmark or anything else. And here's Ari Fleischer, who's former George W. Bush press secretary way back when. Here he is explaining that this is just Trump doing what Trump does.
There's so much to be defined here, and a lot of this is classic Donald Trump negotiating status. He goes in, the bull in the china shop, people think he's going to use force, then when he takes force off the table, they're all like, phew, okay, and then he declares a fait accompli, and now do they look like the bad guys for getting in the way of the fait accompli that he declared today? That's classic Trump negotiating style. I'm still not sure it's going to work in this instance, but that's how he operates.
Kind of cool, though. You think about it.
It's Kudlow. It is kind of cool. Yeah, it is kind of cool. Trump thinks about things differently. And what else does he think about differently? Even the Middle East, a place where for generations, everyone has, one thing that everyone could agree, it didn't matter you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, black, white, male, female, whatever it might be. One thing that we all pretty much agreed on was it would be nice if there was Middle East peace. Now, we are veering closer to it. Does everybody love everybody? No. Are there still all sorts of sectarian problems and borders that are messy and all those things? Yes, but we are closer in that most of the bad guys, say Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, a lot of the Iranian proxies, some of which I just mentioned, they're all banged up at the moment, right? Like they're all realizing, boy, we're just not going to wipe this little New Jersey-sized place with the Jews off. We just can't do it. And Trump has now decided that instead of the UN, which, post-World War II, maybe it had its purposes for a couple of decades, it's become just like an evil Legion of Doom, from DC Comics type atmosphere. It sounds like we're basically replacing the UN, which would be great. I mean, we should blow up the UN building, on the East River in the 40s and just put up a Trump hotel if you want. But let me tell you a little bit more about the Board of Peace from ChatGPT. The Board of Peace is a new international organization proposed and now launched by President Donald Trump with himself as its lifelong chairman. Its declared purpose is to promote stability, restore lawful governance, and secure lasting peace in places affected by conflict. The initiative began as part of the plan tied to the Gaza peace process, originally intended to oversee the ceasefire, reconstruction, governance, and disarmament of Hamas in Gaza. However, the board's charter does not explicitly limit its mandate to Gaza and frames the organization as a broader peace-building body that could address conflicts elsewhere. Membership is by invitation only, and Trump personally decides who can join. A number of nations, especially from the Middle East, Asia, and parts of South America, have accepted invitations, while major European allies like the UK, France, and Sweden have been hesitant or declined. Trump has described the board as potentially something that could rival or supplement the UN nations as in global peace efforts. Now, again, whether it replaces it or supplements it or whatever, I mean, the UN is just completely and utterly useless, right? Like when is the last time that you heard that the UN did something and something good happened? Actually, the UN, we now know, was basically a part and parcel of the Hamas terrorist operation in Gaza. So the UN is disappearing. Will this work? A board of peace, like can a reconstruction of Gaza work and everything else? I don't know exactly. We'll have more on that in just a second. But that Trump, once again, he's thinking about things differently. And if you get a lot of countries sitting in a room and their goal is peace, if their real goal is peace, it doesn't mean that everybody doesn't have their own perspectives on things or ulterior motives or whatever it might be. But if everyone is there and they're like, here's this new thing, and Donald Trump, well, he created this Board of Peace and he's the lifelong chairman of this thing, and we don't want to get on the bad side of Trump. Maybe we'll start doing things that would, move us in a more peaceful direction. Here is Trump announcing the formation of the Board of Peace and sticking it to the UN.
And foreign heads of state, and now we have one of the most important meetings of all, the official formation of what is known as the Board of Peace. Once this board is completely formed, we can do pretty much whatever we want to do, and we'll do it in conjunction with the United Nations. I've always said the United Nations has got tremendous potential, has not used it, but there's tremendous potential in the United Nations. And you have some great people at the United Nations, but so far it hasn't. On the 8 wars that I ended, I never spoke to the United Nations about any of them. And you would think that I should have. You would think they could have done those 8 wars, but they couldn't have, and they tried, I guess, in some of them, but they didn't try hard enough. But there's tremendous potential with the United Nations.
Even that right there, isn't that super interesting? So Trump wraps up these 8 wars in essence, right? There was an India-Pakistan situation. There was obviously Israel-Hamas. There were several other things that took place over the last couple of years. Trump wraps these things up. He didn't even talk to anyone at the UN. I fully believe that. The UN as an organization became completely and utterly useless. It became a tool of globalist leftists. And there he is. He's trying to be nice. He's basically like, yeah, we'll work with you. But there will just be no point in the UN. Unless they have a complete reformation, they fire literally everybody, the Board of Peace will take over. So, of course, the main goal of the Board of Peace at the moment is the reconstruction, and hopefully it's the reconstruction of Gaza, but it's going to have to be something much deeper when it comes to the people of Gaza, right? You're going to have to really re-educate people and just say, stop trying to kill all the Jews. That's going to be probably more complex than building infrastructure and hotels and everything else. But here is Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who was really the architect of the Abraham Accords, unveiling the master plan for the future of Gaza.
So we did a master plan. We brought in, I think, Yakir Gabay, who's one of the most successful real estate developers and brilliant people I know. He's volunteered to do this, not for profit, really because of his heart. He wants to do this. And we've developed ways to redevelop Gaza. Gaza, as President Trump's been saying, has amazing potential. And this is for the people of Gaza. We've developed it into zones. In the beginning, we were toying with the idea of saying, let's build a free zone, and then we have a Hamas zone. And then we said, you know what, let's just plan for catastrophic success. Hamas signed a deal to demilitarize. That is what we are going to enforce. People ask us what our plan B is. We do not have a plan B. We have a plan. We signed an agreement. We are all committed to making that agreement work. There's a master plan. We'll be doing it in phasing. In the Middle East, they build cities like this in 2-3 million people. They build this in 3 years. And so stuff like this is very doable if we make it happen. Rafah will start with. This will show a lot of workforce housing. We think this could be done in 2-3 years. We've already started removing the rubble and doing some of the demolition. And then New Gaza. It could be a hope. It could be a destination, have a lot of industry. We have a lot of data on what can be, but we think that this really gives the Gazan people an opportunity to live their aspirations. But it all starts with security, and it all starts with governance. Final note I'll just say on the Board of Peace, which is that all the lessons we're doing is we're basically studying the best practices from all over the world, and we're watching who does education the best, who does healthcare delivery the best. All of these things it's not secret IP. All this is IP that the Board of Peace is going to make public, and we want to encourage all the countries to be able to follow these best practices.
Let me just say on Jared, because I know him a little bit off camera, he is a profoundly decent human being who has nothing close to hatred in his heart, who wants people to live peacefully, he is just a good man. He is just a good man. And he has a track record, not only in the business world, but also in the Middle East world with the Abraham Accords, that they can do some things. And again, this doesn't mean you can change the hearts of all of these people, right? Like there is a strain of radical Islam and a hatred of the next door neighbors there that I don't know that you can do that in 1 generation or even 2 generations or whatever. But things do change, right? The Nazis, after being profoundly defeated in World War II, have led to a German society that is, well, now ironically being largely taken over by Islamists, but the average native German is not a Nazi and is a good, decent person and doesn't hold hatred in their heart. And by the way, nobody's guilty for the sins of their grandparents or anything else. That's one of the reasons that Germany got so screwy over the last couple of years with immigration is they had an undue guilt of what their ancestors did that then led them to bringing in all of these people who are then destroying their society. But that's a separate issue. The broader point of all of that, when you see those beautiful images of what that could be, it's like that's the same side of, that is just south of Tel Aviv, which is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world on the Mediterranean. And that's what the Gazans could have had. The Israelis left in 2005, and for 20 years they built a giant army of terror instead of building what could be that right there. So now, if you do that and you get these other countries involved and there's businesses involved and everything else, the average person who might be a little more inclined to do an afternoon jihad might be like, oh, I've got a job, or there's some nice restaurants here, or like life starts taking root. So there really is something to be said about doing something economically, doing something with infrastructure, and just sort of doing the physical parts first. You still have to deal with the heart part, right? You still have to deal with the spiritual part, and there's still religious stuff there. But if you can create the conditions that these guys are like, my life is actually pretty good, and look at all these beautiful buildings, and we're on the Mediterranean, and I know now if I run into Israel and murder a couple people, they're going to blow all this up. You might be less inclined to do it. So it is worth a shot. Here is Caitlin Collins on CNN asking Trump why Putin is on this board.
Talk about being concerned, Mr. President, about Russia trying to come and take over Greenland. If you're worried that Putin would do something like that, why invite him to join your board of peace?
Because we want everybody. We want all nations. We want all nations where people have control, people have power. That way we're never going to have a problem. This is the greatest board ever assembled. And everybody wants to be on it. And it's going to be great. I think the Board of Peace will be the most prestigious board ever, and it's going to get a lot of work done that the United Nations should have done. And we'll work with the United Nations, but the Board of Peace is going to be special. We're going to have peace. It started off with Gaza, the Middle East. We've got peace in the Middle East, tremendous peace in the Middle East. Nobody thought that was possible. And that happened by taking out the Iran nuclear threat. Without that, it could have never happened. But the board is going to be, I think, really fantastic. And
look, in this case, I'll actually give Caitlin Collins some credit. It's an interesting question, right? Like, so you guys have this massive war that's been brewing for years that seemingly still has no end, although I do think Trump's going to work on something before the midterms, and they have been working on it also in general. But it's an interesting question. Like, so if the idea is, well, Putin's the bad guy, he's going into Ukraine, there's all this killing, like, why bring him in on this? And Trump's answer, again, is just Trump being honest. He's basically like, well, we got to work with people. And the more people that you bring in, as I said earlier, people may have their own motivations, motives, blah, blah, blah. But you bring in all of these people and then good things start happening. They might be less inclined to do other bad things. It's the beauty of capitalism in some sense. It's the beauty of free markets and economics. You start working together in a way. You don't force everyone to do everything, but you start working together. And then if Russia is like, we're on the board of peace and now there's some Russian investment, let's say in Gaza or in one of these other areas, they might be less inclined the next time a crazy jihadist is like, we're going to start launching rockets. Well, the Russians might be like, wait a minute, but then when Israel counterattacks, they're going to blow up our stuff. So if you get more people involved, it actually creates the conditions where we're kind of all in on it together. And to illustrate that perfectly, that Trump just thinks about things differently, here is our all-star Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Because the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, is someone who is not limited by what others say is possible or what others say is impossible. He's not limited by some of the things that have happened in the past, and he's willing to talk to or engage with anyone in the interest of peace, always putting the American people and our national security first, but understanding that in the world that we share with so many others, peace is paramount to all of us.
Yeah, so this is, look, again, we don't know what will transpire with all of this. Will it work? In 20 years, will it go completely haywire? Who the hell knows? But we're trying things a little bit differently, and this is thanks to Donald Trump. If there was quite literally any other US president, whether it was Barack Obama or George W. Bush or Otto Penn or Kamala Harris or any of them, and they had gone to the WEF, none of these things would be happening. And actually, all of the screws of authoritarianism and globalism would be tightening against us right now. So this is very, very good. On a completely other note, there was also some good news coming out of the office of the vice president. This is from Usha Vance, the second, she's the second lady, JD's wife, obviously. We're very excited to share the news that Usha is pregnant with our fourth child, a boy. Usha and the baby are doing well, and we're all looking forward to welcoming him in late July. During this exciting and hectic time, we're particularly grateful for the military doctors who take excellent care of our family and for the staff members who do so much to ensure that we can serve the country while enjoying a wonderful life with our children. I'm going to make a prediction. That baby is going to be born on July 4th, the 250th anniversary of the United States. I just have a feeling, Joseph put this up. I thought this was quite curious. Could it be that the baby will be the memed version of JD Vance? For those of you who don't know what that means, the giant fat head JD Vance means you're not on the Twitter a lot. God bless you. Don't worry. Some of you laughed at that. Some of you were like, what the hell is that? You don't have to even let it in. You don't have to let it in. I did think this was great, though, because there's been these great memes of all the things that Marco's going to have to do. He's going to have to run Venezuela. He's going to be the new Shah of Iran. He's going to blah, 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 blah. And, of course, here's Marco Rubio realizing he now has to deliver J.D. Vance's baby. All right, guys, we're going to talk about lean for just a second, and we'll get to a couple of RubinReport.locals.com community questions. By the time the average person hits 60, they've often lost and regained hundreds of pounds. Doctors even have a name for it, weight cycling. Weight cycling is when you lose 10 or so pounds, then gain it back, plus a couple more. It's hard on your body, and truly, it's just frustrating. The bottom line is this: most people need help losing weight. That's where Lean comes in. Lean is a non-prescription oral supplement created by doctors, and the science behind it's very impressive. They studied ingredients that work in 3 powerful ways. First, Lean helps maintain healthy blood sugar. Second, it helps control appetite and cravings. And third, it helps your body burn fat by converting it into energy, which is key to keeping off weight long term. So if you want to lose meaningful weight at a healthy pace and actually keep it off, add Lean to your lifestyle. Right now, you can get 20% off when you go to takelean.com and use code Rubin. That's Rubin for 20% off at takelean.com. All right, let's get to a couple community questions. Joseph, you're on the internet right now, and you are able to receive questions if they were to submit them right this moment on the fly?
Yep, that's correct.
That was good use of the camera over there. All right. Eurasian says, do you think the media and the Dems have damaged the reputation of ICE agents beyond repair, or will the average person's perceptions return to normal eventually? You know, that's a great question because it gets to the sort of bubbles that we're all in. And I'm in a bubble just like everybody else. And, you know, in my world, you know, like what I do here and when I'm out and about talking to people and people say hi to me or I'm playing basketball, my guys, like pretty much everyone I know is for what ICE is doing. Yes, you hear a couple people that say that kind of generic line of, oh, but I wish it was a little cleaner or something. And the point is that there's nothing that's perfectly clean. So you're asking for something that's kind of not a possibility. Also, I think a great data point, if you're in a debate with any of these things with your friends, is what we brought up earlier, that Barack Obama deported more than 900,000 people via Tom Homan and gave him an award for it. Trump's only up to 700,000. Now, your question as to whether they're permanently damaged. Yeah, in some sense, and this is where we just don't know the percentages, but like if you're just a basic lefty right now, you're a progressive, you're whatever that is, you're the socialist, whatever, like you hate ICE at this point. Like you're not walking into a party being like, well, they're not all terrible. Like, no, you're all in on that lunacy. So, but that's also why I keep saying an unstoppable force has met an immovable object here. Trump cannot give an inch here. If he pulls out, if he pulls out of Minnesota, it will be disastrous for his presidency because it will basically say, oh, the inmates that are running the asylum there and taking over the streets and attacking federal officers and bursting into churches and blah, blah, that they run the show. So yes, I think to some extent there's been a damaging of ICE's reputation. Not very much in my world, but again, this is why we all got to try to get out of our bubbles sometimes. Glenn says, are there actors or actresses that you can't watch anything they have done anymore because of their political stances or actions? And are there any that you begrudgingly will watch because you love what they have done on screen or more? You know, I've addressed this a little bit, but when I quickly glanced at the questions this morning, I came up with 3 people that I just cannot stand. So the Sex and the City, what the hell's her name? Cynthia Nixon. She is just a grotesque, you know, she's a lesbian with like 7 trans kids, which putting aside any of your feelings on any of that, the reason it's ridiculous is because she's also a full-on Hamas supporter. She absolutely is. She was in Sex and the City, but the thing that I tried to watch, that I literally stopped watching, it wasn't great, but I could have plowed through, but I could not. She's got that snaggle tooth too. She's got this one tooth out here, which for a lesbian, I feel like that's got to be a little. But there's a show on HBO called The Gilded Age, which is about, you know, sort of early 1900s New York City with it's about the Gilded Age, that there were these people that were building industries and railroads and they had all of this money and there was sort of the upstairs, downstairs, you know, the rich elites and the people that worked for them downstairs. It was sort of an American version of Downton Abbey, which I absolutely loved. And it was created by Julian Fellows as well. The show it didn't have the magic of Downton, but I was watching it and it just, I could just do it, right? Because there are no explosions. I was like, all right, let me just watch something without murder and explosions for a change. But it wasn't great, and then she was the final straw. Who else do we have there? We have Mark Ruffalo, who I cannot stand, and we've already talked about him in the last couple of weeks. He's the worst of the worst leftist douchebag, just making money while he lectures you about how awful America is. And then De Niro is the obvious one here because he's been in so many freaking great movies. whether it's Godfather 2, where, you know, he's a child in Godfather 2. Can we grab an image of De Niro in Godfather 2? I mentioned this, what was it, maybe 2 months ago, I think, when I was flying back from Australia, maybe I watched Godfather 2 again. And if you watch Godfather 2, he's so young in it that I was able to watch it and not be kind of annoyed, because you don't think of him as young De Niro anymore. But he's been in so many great movies, whether it is Godfather 2, or whether it is Meet the Parents or Meet the Fockers, or the mafia thing that he did with the funny movie that he did with Billy Crystal. What the hell was it called? What was the movie? I'm not doing this. I got a problem. Who are you, Billy Crystal? What the hell was it called?
Analyze this?
Analyze this. Okay, analyze this, analyze that. Like, he's been in a good, you know, he's just been in, Casino, which is amazing, Goodfellas, like, he's been in so much great stuff, and yet you see him and then it does start ruining it. And that's why I do like, when I see shows or movies that I don't know who any of the people are, it makes it easier to watch. And that's why actors, if you're an actor, let me give you a little advice, just shut up. Just shut up. The less we know about, you know, who's that great actor from There Will Be Blood? Well, Jack Nicholson's a great actor, but I don't know his politics. No. The great actor, There Will Be Blood, and he's won many Academy Awards. He was in Gangs of New York.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis. He's a perfect example of what an actor should be. He is spectacular at his craft, right? And I don't know any of his thoughts on anything. I'm sure he has his thoughts, and I'm sure he shares them with his friends and family, but he doesn't use his fame as an actor to lecture us. And I can tell you, as someone that lived in LA and knew a lot of actors, and I did take an acting class for a few months back in 2003, these are the most vapid, useless people on the planet. They don't actually do anything. They pretend to do things. I like people who do things. Lacey says, what if there was a program that allowed American citizens to adopt an illegal immigrant where they get a small stipend and house and feed them? Interesting, but they will also be liable for any/all things related to the adoptee. If the illegal immigrant is caught in a crime, no matter how small, both the adopter and the immigrant are held equally accountable. How many protesters and leftists do you think would volunteer for this? That's not the white supremacy sign, that's just a zero. Yeah, well, that's interesting, because you'd have to put a little skin in the game, and that's something that leftists don't like to do. They like to do things when it costs them nothing. It'll cost you a lot, but it'll cost them nothing. You know, you might be able to make some argument. Well, okay, here's a version of it that I think could potentially work. There are a lot of people who have, let's say, landscapers or housekeepers who are illegal, or maybe on the pathway to citizenship, or maybe have been here and they pay taxes, but they're not fully legal, or some version of that. Could there be something where if you are employing one of these people, you have to pay some sort of penalty or yearly thing that goes to the government to build infrastructure, let's say, that then also is connected to them as they become a legal citizen? That sounds interesting. The thing about attaching it to criminality, I mean, nobody's going to do it, right? Like, nobody would do it, but it is kind of interesting thought experiment. Crafty Cat, what's a podcast or good book you've listened to? I don't think I've ever listened to a podcast. Are they out there on? I don't know. I honestly, I don't. I watch clips of things, a lot of the stuff that we show you here, but I don't really listen to podcasts. You know, at night lately, maybe 5 minutes before bed, I'll do a little bit of mindful meditation, just grabbing on whatever I see on Spotify or something like that. You know, if you want to read a really good book, I've been meaning to reread it. We actually listened to it on the way. Could maybe grab the image of it. Albert Brooks wrote a book called 2030. It's probably from about 15 years ago. Albert Brooks, the great comedian and actor. And it's his only work of fiction, as far as I know, and it's a wonderful book about what America would look like in 2030. And a lot of it has to do with it's old people versus young people and the tension that causes. And there's an interesting China play on it, and a bunch of other stuff, and a massive disaster. I don't want to explain everything, but if we have the cover of it, maybe we can show it right there. I listened to it, and I actually want to try to read it. It's his only novel, yeah, and it's called The Real Story of What Happened to America. I really did. I did enjoy it. And he also, you know, he's kind of like one of these lefty ding dongs, but it hasn't, you know, if you've never seen Defending Your Life, he's made so many great movies. Defending Your Life is the top, though. Tony says, any plans to have a sit down with the great Dan Bongino now that he's back? Yes, I spoke to Dan last week. We're trying to figure it out. He's coming back. I think was it February 2nd, I think is that Monday. We may do it in Longboat Key over at Rumble Studios. We may do a live event together. Maybe we'll get him in here if we can get him down to Miami. But we are going to do something, and I'm very, very excited that he'll be back. Oh, and I shouldn't mention the other thing. But some other good things are happening too. Web Metalwork says, why is it that Newsom thinks it's a good idea to basically bash his home team in front of everyone? It's pretty embarrassing as an American. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting piece of it too. You know, he's out there and he did this thing. He literally, in one of the speeches, we didn't show it to you. Maybe we can grab a screenshot quick. He brought knee pads on stage because he keeps saying that the Europeans are on knee pads. And it's like, it's so freaking embarrassing, man. It's like, you don't have to, everyone knows your feeling about Trump. It's so innovative and exciting. But like, stop, but everything he does is counter to Trump, and it's because Trump is America. Trump is now America. It is America in the best sense. So it's counter to America, and it's embarrassing. And I, it's interesting. I wonder. This is a good question. Well, maybe we can do a little digging on this. Are there other leaders from other countries that are at the WEF that are radically going after the leader of that country? That's a good question. Let's see if we can find that. Like, are there people in the UK that are showing up alongside, I don't even know if the prime minister was there. I actually didn't see him. But like, okay, we saw Macron from France there. Are there opposition leaders from France on stage at the WEF telling you how awful France is? Or is that only happening with the US? I'm gonna guess it's only happening with the US and Donald Trump. Here's the image of, he literally brought knee pads on stage. Like, he's just grotesque. Loves to Laugh says, Dave, would you consider interviewing some of the candidates running in the state primaries as a way to motivate Republicans to vote and get others to vote? Yes, absolutely. And actually, just yesterday, I saw that Michelle Tafoya, who was I've been on her podcast, she was a great sports broadcaster for many, many years, I think on ABC, if I'm not mistaken. She now has just announced she's going to run for Congress from Minnesota. So yes, I will be more than happy we can do mini interviews with as many of them as there. Just if you can give these people 15 minutes to get a little more mainstream coverage, because we know what happens. If you're a Democrat and you're a radical and you're just all in on that nonsense, mainstream media goes, you'll be on the cover of Time magazine, you'll be on the CNN panel shows. But if you're young and you're conservative, Republican, whatever, they don't give you the chance. So I'd love to do that. We'll start with Michelle and then we'll do some others. Joe says the NFL has reached the conference championship games with the Super Bowl right around the corner. We've got Seattle versus the LA Rams and Denver versus New England. Who are you picking this year? I missed football this year. I just missed the entire season, but let me try to think. We've got Seattle. Who's on Seattle? They got the Johnson. Do they have Johnson? Sam Donald. Darnold. Yes. All right. And LA Rams. They've got Todd Boynton, Jim Gaffigan, Matthew Stafford. Denver, is Elway still playing? I got one finally. Is Elway he's still out there? John Elway? Nix. They've got Nix, but he broke his ankle. His name's just Nix? No, it's last name. Nix. And New England. Well, is Tom Brady still out there? He's doing something, right? They got any of those guys? Well, that would be the extent of my analysis. So, Connor, can you give me something here? What do you think? Probably the Rams. All right, we're going to be a Rams family here at the Rubin Report. We'll see what happens. Trying Daily says, can we charge back money to Minnesota or any of these cities and states that for all the damage done to our ICE equipment and vehicles? I'm sick of absorbing the cost. I mean, if they don't arrest any of them, it's always back on us. That is a great point. That sounds very much in line with Donald Trump's line of thinking. And it's like, remember, we showed you that video, what was it, a week and a half ago? Those guys bust into an ICE vehicle, break into the trunk. Literally, somebody takes out a rifle and he's on video. What happened to that guy with that crazy tattoo? Like, find these people and they should be fined. They should be arrested where applicable. And yes, I do like the idea of charging or withholding more money if they're going to do it, the state's going to do it or whatever. The final question, seems like an odd way to end, but when you were growing up, which one of the Village People did you want to be? Never particularly wanted to be one of the Village People, although the fact that the YMCA is Donald Trump's favorite song is just so completely insane. But if I was one of these guys, I guess I would be the guy with the cowboy hat on the left. Looks like the most normal of all of them. Yeah, I wasn't a big one. I always, the stuff that I like now is literally the same stuff. Like, I was an old soul in some sense when it came to like music and fashion and all of that stuff. Like, I always like the same stuff. I like the Rat Pack. I just never was into the Village People. Didn't care much. Joseph, do you have any closing thoughts? How'd we do today? How'd I do?
I'd say you did like a 9-6.
9-6. All right, that's doable. That's doable. What's for lunch today?
What is for lunch today? I don't know.
Wow, are you guys not having lunch?
Lunch is Thursday.
Oh, Thursdays. We're fasting today apparently.
Fish heads.
There's no post game show because I just have a ton to do. So I appreciate your patience on that. But we are back tomorrow, and we've got a great panel. It's Brandon Tatum and is it Aaron? No, it's
Adam Sosnick.
Oh, and Sosnick from PBD Podcast. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao.